Howdy y'all, we got the Bulldog on the channel. What we got here today is a 13 GMC Sierra, 3/4 ton truck, 6.0 in it, and customer complaint was that it was getting hot. So they thought, well, just put a thermostat in it. So they did that. Well, then it got hot really quick and it was puking coolant out, or they just put water back in it. So it's pouring water out, and I got the job of finding out what's wrong. We're pretty swamped right now, but I got to stop and do this because they're out of vehicles. I looked at it and it's got all kinds of water around the thermostat, so that's what they were in. So I pull the thermostat off and I find that the rubber O-ring that mounts around the thermostat, when they slipped it in the hole, the thermostat poked through that O-ring and it was all cockeyed in there, and so it's just dumping out. What I did was I put it back in like it's supposed to be, mounted everything all up, put it all back together, not a drip on the ground, until I started it and ran it. Of course, before it would just pour back out as you poured it in. Well, as soon as I started it up with full of coolant, it started dripping. And we ran it a little bit, and as soon as it started to build a little pressure, it started dripping here, there, and yonder. Well, the water pump is bad, and it's dumping antifreeze out from underneath the pulley on the water pump. That's why it didn't start leaking until after I started it up. Sometimes they won't leak not running, sometimes they will only leak not running. There's all kinds of different scenarios which they will leak and not show up other times. But up front, the plastic tanks on the radiator are cracked. At least the driver's side is cracked. It's pouring out both corners of the radiator. That has nothing to do with anything else. So, already called the customer, got okay, well, texted them, got okay with them, and we're finding parts right now. We got to get this done today. This is somebody that's a customer from over home, so they're 50 or 60 miles away, and I drove the vehicles here. Well, I didn't drive this one, we hauled it, but I got the other. They're car poor at the moment, and I brought one of their vehicles here, hauled this one with me. So I gotta have a ride home. I gotta get this thing done. Let's get into it. I said this guy was car poor. Here's a project that we're working on right now for him. Chore truck, so that he doesn't tear up his nice trucks. One of his nice trucks is out here. You picked the fine time to leave me loose wheel. He doesn't want to sing that. So I'm putting the wheel bearing on it. What's real fun on these trucks is they don't have a drain plug to drain the coolant. So yeah, that's fun. Here you can see a stream of coolant coming down, leading up to there. It's cracked on the front side of that radiator tank. So we got parts on their way. Hopefully I can get it all done. Here's what I do when I'm reusing a belt. This belt's in good shape. I always just throw it on the mirror. That way it's not wadded up on the ground. And I also keep my position. I always put it with the front out, because if you turn a belt around, on occasion you can have one that squeaks because it's running a little differently than what it was. Should it do it? No. Does it do it? Yeah, not really, but it's just one of the quirks that I have. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I might have found the source of his overheating issue as well. Here's an issue. whenever you're using these things as farm trucks, there's a lot of weed seed. He does haying and everything, so this does not surprise me one bit. It'll get through the condenser, which has smaller fins, but then get locked into the dead area between the condenser and the radiator. A lot of trucks have this problem, and honestly, they should do a better job of building trucks to prevent this. Cars do it too, but very less often. And here, right here is where that thing is cracked. Split the side of the radiator right there. Okay, got that radiator out of this area. Now we got to pull the pump off. I've already pulled the thermostat off because it was attached to the lower hose, and this is really not a bad job at all. Heater hose is over here. Go ahead and pull your tensioner off, and then 6 bolts, 3 on each side, and it just pulls right off. Now, in my opinion, this is where the LS motors become superior to the small blocks. Their cooling system. I mean, they got air bleeds on top, so they don't have any water going through the intake here. It's a dry intake. They've got some coolant going through the throttle body for quicker warm up and all that kind of stuff. But you've got this here, 6 bolts, it drops off. The thermostat is in the water pump. All the hoses go in the water pump. You don't have to hook anything up to the block. So everything gets replaced when you do the water pump. Quick cleanup. I wish they have a better drain, but oh well. Here you can see the trail of water that went up underneath the pulley. This is the top here. This is the bottom. Here's where the thermostat was. Sweeps out that side, but it's just been pouring out from underneath the pulley. There's a weed pole underneath there that it was coming out of because it has a bad seal on the inside of it. Here's our new water pump. Now here's a problem that they used to have years ago. They had a aluminum frame on their gasket with a little silicone seal, lip seal in it. And when they mounted it all up, the thing sank down, hanging on the bolts because they put everything together dry and loose. And this bottom here, the seal would almost be off. And after a few thousand miles, it just started leaking out, and it made it look like a head gasket was leaking because it's right there by the head. And guess what? These things also had a problem with head gaskets leaking right there. So, you know, diagnosing that was sometimes kind of fun. But I haven't done one that I screwed up on. But I have done several of them where I confirmed that it was one, fixed it, and then a few thousand miles later, the other side or the other part was leaking. So what I do, these things got felt gaskets. I call them felt. It's a hard paper, like a paper board. And I take contact cement and I glue them to the part. That way they're centered on there and they're not gonna shift around on you. Now, after I get them glued on, I go ahead and put a coating of Indian head on it, or Permatex, shellac, whatever you want to call it. Just, you know, just so that they're not dry. I only do this with paper gaskets. I don't do it with rubber or anything like that because that rubber will seal. But this stuff, you know, get it anywhere. All right, I got it all back together. I'm gonna go filter out the antifreeze and pour it back in since it's brand new. And we're gonna drive it and see how she does. Well, we got the test drive taken care of and it didn't go well. It came in with huge leaks and getting hot. I don't know how long it'd been getting hot. I know it got really hot whenever he tried to fix the leak. This is a lesson in how far do you check things and how much do you do before you start your repairs, especially when you find obvious things wrong right off the bat. First things first, fix the thermostat leak. Then we found the radiator leaking and the water pump leaking both. So, okay, well, they've got the parts in stock. I can have them done today. So we dove right into fixing it. I had ran the truck. I started it up and it ran good. Didn't think anything of it. Well, started it up after completing the repairs. It ran decent. Take it down the highway, come back, burp the air out of the system, and it started running not quite right after it had ran a while. I did notice every time I'd start it, it would crank a little bit too much when we started it up. But didn't think anything of it really. Well, this thing's been hot. This thing's been very, very hot. Should have done a block test before I started. But anyway, it got so hot that it blowed head gaskets. Call the customer up, tell them what's going on. Well, might as well go in and do it. It's not any good to me right now. All right, I dove in, pulled the heads off. It's been really hot. I'll show you here. Okay. Set that light up here. And just you see those lines? That's where it's gotten hot. And notice that they're right here where the cylinders join together. There's no space in between that to keep it cool. Got air around it. This part stayed hot. That's a big old wide area. And all of them have it. Even on the back, a little bit. Both sides have the trouble. That's from how hot the engine got. Now the system only holds about 4 gallon. I put 2.5 gallons straight antifreeze in it afterwards. So I knew that it was pretty empty. Now I drained it back out to put the radiator and the water pump in it. I only got about 1.5 gallons, 2 gallon out of it. And then I put that back in it after filtering it, and it filled it up. So it got hot enough to boil out the block. But I've seen these things get hot like that before and never do this. I don't know how long he ran it. I don't know how long it's had this problem, but unfortunately, unfortunately this means the motor's job. Will it run? Yes. We can put it all back together. But it's gonna cost close to $1,000 to machine those heads. It had leaky valves. Because I wasn't gonna get bit again. And I did a leak down test to it. The rings were marginal. They were on right there between green and yellow on their deal. It doesn't have an actual poundage. But you just make a judgment call on that. The reason I was doing that is because it was taking a period to start up. you know, an extra second, second and a half, and the engine sped up as it started. That is a telltale sign of low compression. I've already called the customer and he's gung-ho to put a motor in it. Finding one in due time is a bit of a chore. So it looks like we have found one. It's probably going to be here next week, but I don't know. That's just what we're dealing with right now. This is kind of the way it is for mechanics and a lot of service industry workers out there. That you end up things beyond your control causing problems. Well, you're the point person for the customer's frustration. So try to be understanding of the customer. They just want their vehicle fixed. And the customers, you need to be understanding of the mechanics, because there's a lot of things out of their control. They do not have the ability to just have your part if it's something that's rare, or if it's not to be had out there. There's some parts we can't get, period. They don't have them. We searched. Hey, there's somebody that'll have it. We just don't know how to get to them. Beyond looking at Amazon and eBay, and, you know, secondhand sites and salvage yards, all that kind of stuff. If you can't find it there and they don't sell it new and it's been discontinued at the dealer, what do? At a certain point, you got to stop looking, because you're wasting time. There's time that you could be spending working on somebody else's vehicle, especially when we're this busy. We are backed up weeks out. We're trying to get this stuff in, but like I said, we want it in and out. So anyway, like, comment, subscribe, hit your little bell notification, share it all around. We'll talk to you later.